I was terrified. I was so scared to go on the show. I had just experienced my first ever loss against a badass named Claire Guthrie. And when we got to the hotel, I saw her there. So I'm like, oh, they brought me here for a rematch to lose again. And I was so nervous and scared. I cried every night in quarantine before going into the house. And so I turned that into not letting myself feel those feelings. And every night I would run and I'd just be like, I'm the Ultimate Fighter champion. I'm the Ultimate Fighter champion. I must have said it 2 million times before I got into the house, just to trigger myself into not allowing myself to like feel the nerves of it all. But cool. It might sound funny, but like I'm comfortable in the underdog position. Every time people write me off and are like, she's gonna lose, I shock the world. And for some reason, I tend to struggle more when I'm like a 5-1 favorite. It's so interesting, but there's something about when people are like, you don't deserve to be here, you suck, you're not gonna make it, that like, from the core of my being, I'm like, oh yeah, let's find out then.
Shit's about to go down. I'm feeling something in my spirit.
Chats and Tats with Della Vedova.
I am super excited to announce that we are now sponsored by Sullen Clothing. And I also wanted to add, if you're a tattoo artist out there who is interested in maybe doing a collaboration with these guys, they're always looking for new talent, new ideas. Feel free to hit them up at design@sullenclothing.com. Jeremy, Sullen, all the boys over there, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. Chats and Tats with me, your host, Della Vedova. So a while back, we had Chris Lieben on. I think some of you saw it. And I just became a huge fan of this man, became a good friend of mine. He's such an inspiration to me and so many. And through him, he recommended my guest today. She is an MMA fighter as well. She just won the Ultimate Fighter Season 30. And there's other highlights of her career that we're going to get into here in a minute. But she's also overcome a lot of life adversity and just to be a fighter, a female fighter in that sport's its own story, right? So she's really cool, really interesting, and I'm really excited to talk to her today. So without further ado, please welcome Juliana, the Killer Miller.
And now, welcoming to the Guru Tattoo, the Killer.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, what's his name? Bruce Buffer. You got to go full Bruce Buffer with it right there.
Yeah, when it's actually part of the reason people loved and hated me on The Ultimate Fighter was like I was really nervous, and ESPN did an interview and they're like, "Okay, introduce yourself," and I pulled a Bruce Buffer.
Oh, people gave you shit for that?
Yeah, some people loved it. Others are like, "She's so annoying," but either way, they were all watching.
It's hilarious. That dude is like a straight comedian. Like,
yeah, he's a man.
He's so cool. I don't know him personally, but I mean, he's famous. It's so funny. He's so famous for doing that thing.
Yeah.
Boy, he never lets up 1 inch. Like you're waiting for Bruce Buffer to like a fighter almost. Like when does he start waning off the edge, And it just, every time I'm seeing him, like, I think he's getting bigger, like louder, stronger.
It's goals. I can't wait for him to announce I'm going to be, when he points at me and starts saying my name, it's just going to fuel me. Someone's going to die that night for sure.
Oh, the Killer Miller for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of gave a brief introduction. So you've obviously been doing this for a while, but it led you to the thing that people might know you most for, which was The Ultimate Fighter, Season 30. In which you came in, I think, correct me on some of this info if I'm wrong, because I love MMA. I tattooed Joe Rogan, and through him, I pay attention. I watch most of the big fights, but I'm not the guy that watches all of it, so my stats might be a little bit off. But you came in a bit of an underdog, right?
Major
underdog would be a better way to put it. So I think a lot of people were looking at you like, this girl's going to get knocked off in, the first week or whatever. You end up winning the damn thing.
Yeah.
Which makes the story a little cooler to me. To win, it's to win. But to come in as a younger, less experienced, and have people kind of doing this shit to you and win it, it's like there's like a double whammy to that. That's cool, man. Were you? I mean, I don't want to say you were shocked. Of course, if you're going to do this sport, you expect to win. There's no other. You can't think about losing. So you probably weren't surprised?
I was terrified. I was so scared to go on the show. I had just experienced my first ever loss against a badass named Claire Guthrie. And when we got to the hotel, I saw her there. So I'm like, oh, they brought me here for a rematch to lose again. And I was so nervous and scared. I cried every night in quarantine before going into the house. And so I turned that into not letting myself feel those feelings. And every night I would run and I'd just be like, I'm the Ultimate Fighter champion. I'm the Ultimate Fighter champion. I must have said it 2 million times before I got into the house, just to trigger myself into not allowing myself to like feel the nerves of it all. But
cool.
it might sound funny, but like I'm comfortable in the underdog position. Every time people write me off and are like, she's gonna lose, I shock the world. And for some reason, I tend to struggle more when I'm like a 5-1 favorite. It's so interesting, but there's something about when people are like, you don't deserve to be here, you suck, you're not gonna make it, that like, from the core of my being, I'm like, oh yeah, let's find out then.
Well, I mean, when you're at the top, you got everything to lose.
Yeah.
And when you're an underdog, you've got kind of nothing to lose and everything to gain. So in a way, it's like less pressure, I would expect. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you're the champ, the whole world's expecting you to be that person. When you're the underdog, no one's really expecting much out of you, so you don't have that pressure. And then when you come out and win, it's double rad, right?
It is double rad, but it's a different kind of pressure. I like to explain it as like a hurt wolf in a corner, right? Even though they're hurt and they're in a corner, they're almost their most dangerous because they're protecting themselves for their life. When you're the underdog, you're financially unstable, you're struggling. This is your only option to make it. Where when you're already the champ and you're stable, you're kind of like, life gets a little easier. Although there's a pressure of staying the champion, there's a lot of other things you don't have to worry about. When you haven't made it yet, this in your head is life or death, which makes it a whole different extreme than someone who's coming in there like, oh, I do this for fun.
Right. No, that does make sense. And you do put that right. I mean, you are fighting for survival unless you just got family money and it's just a little side hobby and everything's handled, which I've heard interviews with you and you've kind of said pretty clearly, like, look, I ain't got a bunch of money and like this is my career. To make it in life, to buy a home someday, to have a regular American lifestyle, I got to win. That's my path. That's the only way out. I won't say the only way. I'm sure there's other options for you in life. But if you stay with fighting, you got to win.
Yeah.
Or it's over.
Definitely.
You know?
Ultimate Fighter actually kind of rescued me because after my loss with Claire, I had pretty much quit fighting and I was on multiple enrollment calls with the military. I was going to go into the Air Force to be a pilot and I had re-enrolled in school to get my associate's degree so I could go in as an officer. And my coaches were having intervention meetings with me. They're like, no, you're a good fighter. Just give it some time. Do a few more fights. And I was like, I'm searching for stability. I was like, I'm almost 26. I'm going to lose my health care. I'm constantly getting hurt in fighting. I'm spending 4 months to maybe make $1,500, which isn't working out. I had 4 jobs. I was literally hustling on 4 side jobs because you can't work a 9 to 5 and train full time. Right. So I was just like so tired of struggling for no stability that I'm like, whoa, the military stability. And, by my 3rd enrollment call, I was like starting to get in the school program and then I got the message about Ultimate Fighter and I'm like, if there's ever been a sign, this is it. So I threw all my chips on the table and I thought about it. I'm like, let's go.
That's right.
I just like accepted it. And so I really believe that the way things worked out, I was meant to be here.
Yeah, well, life is like that. The universe will give you what you need, usually at the last second.
Yeah.
It likes to watch you sweat. It likes to see how committed you are.
Yeah.
I'm not joking when I say that. Like, I could tell stories in my life of, I'm more of an artist and a businessman, but I swear the good things in my life all came down to this. It looked like it was all fucked.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fucked. I'm definitely fucked. And then the day of when it's all going to explode, some doorway opens and I'm like, oh my God, maybe I'm not fucked, And I'm like, why? And I've learned over the years, I always say the universe. Maybe it's God. Maybe it's angels. I don't know. I do believe somebody's coordinating these events, these lives, and I do think it likes to see your level of commitment. And in order to see that, it has to push you to the edge a little bit, like you were pushed to the edge. And then it gave you that little doorway, like, okay, here's a chance. You gonna take it?
Yeah.
And you took it, and you won.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. That's rad. And that kind of leads me to one of my favorite subjects on the show is I have people on, all sorts of people, but all of them have one thing in common. They are people that are basically taking the ultimate risk to follow their dreams, right? Mm-hmm. And they all have this story of being, whether it be money or whether it just be, they had to give up their father's business or they had to leave a relationship. They're giving up really important stuff that most people on paper would say, you're an idiot. You should not do that. And they were saying back to those people, fuck it, I'm doing it. And they took this huge risk and it paid off. And I just love that story because it's such an example of, there's just not most people are like that. Most people do the rational thing, the logical thing. And it's rare to find people that are willing to face fear at that level. And as an MMA fighter, you obviously are comfortable facing fear. The actual physical confrontation of a fight is facing fear. But just leaning into a career like this is almost bigger amount of fear than the fight, right? Because, I mean, you could go mess around this for 8 years and then leave the sport with injuries, no money, and you're back to square one. So that's a big, I don't want to, you're like, shut up, dude.
No, that was what I preached about in Ultimate Fighter, and that was part of the reason of wanting stability in the military. It's just that.
Yeah, right. Well, I doubt you'll end up there. I think your career is on a upward trajectory, and I hope one day I'll be bragging to people about that. Yeah, I had the world champ on my podcast back when she was just getting there. But on that note, also another thing, and I think it leads to a little bit of your ability to face maybe adversity and to face fear, is this, you have had some trauma in your life. I think I'll let you speak to it, but from what I've heard on other interviews is, an abusive relationship that really threw you for a loop, that you had to come out of and really had to reorganize your emotional stability. And I want to hear about how you did that, because I know a lot of people have that story. And whether it be an abusive relationship or a drug problem or, myriad of things that can happen to people that'll set them back. But I want to hear how you specifically, what happened and how you overcame that.
Yeah, so it starts a bit before the relationship. When I was really young, I grew up in a violent home. We didn't have a lot of money. There was consistent struggles, sometimes hiring people to work on our house that were the cheapest amount of money, that weren't necessarily the best people, that shouldn't be around kids. And my dad was facing a lot of things in his life growing up. I love him. I'm so grateful for him. But he grew up in Texas, where their way of punishing is violence. It's just a common thing there. It's not unheard of. It's just that's how you punish your kids, is physically. And that's how we were raised. And so actually, when I step across the cage, it's there is no female my size that is more scary to me than things I've faced in my childhood. My childhood, I remember being so terrified at things in my life that I actually froze. And it would be I don't know, I feel like very few people have experienced this freezing, but if you've ever been so scared that you physically lose your voice, you can't talk, you can't move, when genuinely as a fighter spirit, you fight back. But sometimes things are so scary that you're your entire core being literally shuts down. And that's happened to me, where I lost my voice for 2 days. I tried to scream. I was opening my mouth, trying to scream, and nothing came out. I was unable to get up and run away for maybe 20 minutes until I was able to get out of that situation. So when I see a girl across from me in the cage that we've both trained the same, we're both working for something, it's not scary anymore, as opposed to those things, which is part of why I fight. I think that the youth is extremely targeted, as I was in my youth, and it's part of my vision quest, if you may, of being a fighter is creating a safer place for the youth, because I was one targeted, and I feel like the youth, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter what color, what race, it doesn't matter. The youth is targeted because you're less knowledgeable and you're weaker. You can't really defend yourself when you don't know what you're doing yet. So my kind of traumatic childhood is what led me into a downward spiral of my young adulthood. And when I was 16 years old, I ended up in a relationship, a very toxic relationship with somebody a lot older than me. And I had no business being with someone 15 years older at that age. It just, I just didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know about cheating. I'd never been with somebody that was so successful before. And, like I said, I came from a violent home. So when my boyfriend was being physically, verbally, mentally violent with me, I'm like, oh, well, this is just how men are. I didn't see anything too crazy about it. It was almost like, it's interesting when they talk about trauma, your red beeper goes off when someone treats you well. All of a sudden, someone's being nice and a nice guy. You're like, oh, what is this? And someone's treating you how you grew up being treated, and you're like, oh, it's more comfortable in a weird, extremely fucked up way. So I ended up in this bad relationship, and the good thing that came from it, though, is I learned jujitsu and I found martial arts. And after, a pretty crazy situation, and we finally separated ways, thank goodness, then it didn't end too badly. But as that happened, I found fighting, and I started doing jujitsu competitions to rebuild my confidence. Yeah. And in my situation, what really ended it is I ended up choked out unconscious, and I was tapping, and the person didn't let go. And by the time I woke up, I saw my life flash before my eyes. Like when people say you die and you see your life flash before your eyes, I experienced that. I was like, saw the white light, and it's like the way I can explain it is your brain disconnecting. Is like you're like watching the series of your life, and then all of a sudden everything starts closing out. I experienced that. And
this is during training?
No, this is just the altercation in my toxic relationship.
I see.
I got choked, and I died. I went out. When I woke up, like my mouth was foaming, my nose was bleeding, and I was gone, and then I wasn't. I was back. And this was a huge changing point in my life, because after all this went down, I was so mad, and I just wanted to hurt someone and not end up arrested for it. If there's something that I've learned, it's like, you hit somebody, you're going to end up in legal trouble. And as this situation did, it ended up in legal trouble. Like you can't be going around being physical like that. So that harbored a lot of frustration, violence, anger, vengeful thinking, just like all the negative emotions you could imagine. And it led me into martial arts. I started doing jujitsu to regain my confidence. I'd had a little jujitsu before that, but I wasn't taking it serious. And my main reasoning was, I was like, no one's ever going to touch me like this again. No one will ever grab my neck and touch me again. I don't care if they're a black belt. I don't care if they're a world champion. No one's ever fucking touching me again. I was just so adamant about that. And that was a huge part of my healing, because when you go through something traumatic, you shy away from things like people grabbing your neck, because you have flashbacks. Like flashbacks are a real thing. When you've been through something traumatic, is like a similar situation. Maybe the first 10 times someone grabbed my neck, I was like, and I felt like I was going to die, and I had to kind of battle through that. But as I got good at jiu-jitsu, I told my coach at 10th Planet San Diego, Manolo, I was like, I want to start a women's self-defense seminar because I went through all this stuff and now I'm confident and I've regained my stuff. And he's like, no, girl, the only fight you were ever in, you end up choked out dead on the sidewalk. And I was like, okay, what do you want from me then to do this seminar? He said, you need 3 amateur MMA fights. Go win 3 fights. Prove to me you know how to defend yourself. You can have your seminar. And you know, the thing is Manolo was right, because jiu-jitsu is good to learn, but when you locked in a cage, this person and you sign a contract saying, hey, we're going to go till one of us is completely done. And it's self-defense in there. If you don't defend yourself, the fight's over. That is the #1 rule of MMA. Defend yourself at all times. Which correlated to my life huge, because I had been through so many things from childhood to young adult that I never properly defended myself. I let people treat me bad, talk down to me, and it finally, at like 19 years old, I was ready to take charge of my life. I won those 3 amateur MMA fights in under a minute. I mean, I went in there, threw 2 punches, got the person down, and broke their arm. And I was really savage. Like, I didn't want to get hit. So instead of just slowly getting the armbar, I mean, like, the second I got your arm, I was 0 to 100, going for broke. Like, I don't want to get hit, so I'm just going to break it before they could tap. And when I won those fights, I realized, damn, I'm good at this. And I got to use it to make a difference. After my 3 AMI fights, I held a women's self-defense seminar. And this was huge. And it was so freeing because I got to talk about ways to overcome things you go through. When I was in that altercation, by the way, guys, you can do the research about over 90% of violent situations come from somebody you know. 90%. And genuinely, these people are under the influence. They're maybe drunk, they're on drugs, they're blacked out, they don't know what they're doing. After my situation, people said, buy a gun, buy a gun. I believe you should arm yourself and protect your home. However, I don't think that you should be using weapons when it's a situation with somebody you know, because if it's kill or be killed, I'm shooting to kill if I feel my life is threatened. That's where self-defense comes in, you know. So I really decided that I don't need a gun to defend myself. I'm going to use this martial arts thing. And I did. I had my self-defense seminars, and I loved it. It's actually why I fight. My goal in martial arts as a whole is to create, my vision is to incorporate self-defense into school districts. When you're in school, they have seminars about don't bully, and you sit there. Everyone makes fun of it. The second you leave, the bullies are twice as mean. Instead of having these anti-bullying seminars, you know, you can do elective of art, cooking, all this stuff starting from middle school. But why can't there be a jiu-jitsu program where the kids that are getting pushed in trash cans and beat up can learn how to defend themselves? Why isn't there classes about emotional intelligence? I learned all these subjects that I don't even remember anymore in school, but I never learned how to deal with myself when I'm angry, or I never learned how to defend myself when somebody is assaulting me. And in that moment, it gave me my life's purpose. My life's purpose is to help protect the youth into creating systems that will change the world. I feel like if you learn how to defend yourself as a youth, then you won't be so traumatized. And that made fighting so important to me, because now I don't just fight for myself, I fight for my vision. And when you're outward focused, it makes things a little easier to be motivated.
Yeah, it's not completely self-serving.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really, and I mean, in there, I hear, you know, part of that, what you're trying to do for others and help others, it's part of your own healing, right?
Yeah.
You're healing yourself. You know, I teach, I've been tattooing for 30 years, and I teach people how to tattoo. I hate even making the comparison. It's just what I've learned through teaching is the highest form of learning. because to articulate something that you think you understand, you might understand it pretty well.
Yeah.
But to get someone else to understand it, you have to really, really deeply understand it. So the art of teaching is really the final phase of mastery. And you're teaching people how to heal themselves, how to protect themselves. These are things that you have done. It's never finished, though. You're still working. You know what I mean? Like, is it over? Probably never. I don't think any of us completely heal. Or it's a journey through your life. Yeah. So you giving back and you teaching, this is such a chapter in your own healing and your own journey. And to be working in your career as an MMA fighter with the end goal to help others, that's just awesome. And it does give you probably more motivation than just the person who's doing it because they want the fame or the money. Which I'm sure you wouldn't mind some of that either, but you know, to have that layered in there is really special. Like, that's really sweet, and you being able, the Buddhists will tell you that bad things don't happen, that everything happens as it should, which is always a really hard thing to say because someone listening might have lost their child this year or something, and they're looking at a guy like me like, "Fuck you, dude. Have you lost a child? You know, how dare you? What happened to me shouldn't have happened."
Yeah.
And maybe acutely that's true, but I like to say if it doesn't permanently, damage you and you survive it, it probably was in some weird way meant to be. And in your case, you're okay. I mean, physically, you didn't die, and those events are really, they're part of your story. Would you be here without those events? Is the thing?
No, I'm actually grateful for the way that the way that things went down, and it's almost emotional to say that. It brings a tear to my eye because looking back, everyone says I wish this didn't happen, but I wouldn't be where I am today without it. And although I want to help protect people from going through that trauma, I'm glad that I dealt with that toxicity when I was young, because I feel like I can be a more successful adult. But one thing you said that I love is you said the growing's never finished. When I was crawling out of my rock bottom phase, embarrassing to share with the world, but when I hit rock bottom, I ended up drinking, and one night I had drank and I took a Xanax, and I don't remember what happened, but that night I tried to take my life. I woke up in my car parked on the side of the road somewhere, and somehow I had found something sharp, and I have some scars on my wrists, and I woke up with these insanely huge gashes that were about a centimeter from my major vein. And I didn't see a purpose in living anymore. I was like, I love life is fucked. I am not going anywhere. I'm unsuccessful. I hate myself. Part of like surviving trauma is more than hating the person that did it to you. For some reason, it harbors hate for yourself. You're like, I was so mad at myself. Like, why did I put up with this? Or how did I let this happen? Why am I so lame? I'm unsuccessful. I'm not going anywhere. I'm never gonna be anything. And it was so important for me to get there. I mean, thank God for my big brother and sister. I ended up 3 days on their couch. I couldn't leave. I couldn't get up out of the couch. And I just like would look down at my arm and see these huge holes. I was like, you're a failure. I just did the most selfish thing. Like, I have family members that love and care about me. My nieces, my nephews, like, they look up to me. What if, they saw that I just quit on life and I gave up? And I got enrolled into emotional intelligence classes, and I want to give a huge shout out at this point in my life to Chris Lieben and Scott Nelson and Brian Dyer. These three men were huge roles in me crawling back to the surface. When I was in my rock bottom, Chris was crawling out of his rock bottom. And one time we met up, and his amazing wife, Brittany, we went on an ocean hike, and they go on daily walks. This is something he talks to me about. Part of his healing is going on daily walks and changing your situation. For those of you at home in rock bottom, here's a cookie you can take with you to help crawl out of it. Change your space. When I couldn't get off the couch, I was crying for a week straight. I couldn't move. As soon as I forced myself to start to get up, that's when I started having a tidbit of light for a moment before I ended up crying again. So thank you, Chris Lieben, for those hikes. Scott Nelson, I called him. I said, I'm absolutely insane. I'm crazy. I want to die. I have no vision in life. And I see that you do these emotional intelligence programs. I'm like, you're a self-made man. You're successful. Is there anything I can do to help myself? I reached out to the people that I saw be the most successful. And he had said, well, there's this emotional intelligence course. I can help you get enrolled in it and tell you a little more about it. And he said, it starts in 2 weeks and it's $3,500. At the time I was at such rock bottom. I was working side jobs, and embarrassing to say, I was collecting cans for like 5 cents to pay for gas money even. So I'm like, how am I supposed to do that? But I wanted it so bad. I reached out to every person in my life that I had cared about from past to future. I said, hey, I want to change my life. I want to be better. I want to die, and I'm tired of wanting to die. I want to be someone. I want to help people. I want to change the world. And will you donate money so I can work on myself? This emotional intelligence camp, I want to be a good fighter. Fighting is, I usually say 90% mental. One of the greats, Conor McGregor, he says it's 100% mental. And I think that correlates to whatever you're trying to do in life. It's mental. It's dealing with your head. And so, dealing with all this stuff, I got enrolled in emotional intelligence programs. And what kind of brought this up was you said the healing never ends. These emotional intelligence programs changed my life. And I went into them because I felt crazy. I didn't know how to deal with myself. I didn't know what to do with myself. And this gave me a vision because I started learning things of how to deal with manic depression, how to overcome that. And I still battle with that severely today, but I've learned these things that help make me better. Brian Dyer, I said earlier, when I was in rock bottom, he said, meet me at the gym. We're rolling. We're doing jiu-jitsu, and I taped up my arm super intense, and I went there and we rolled in jiu-jitsu for an hour straight. By the end of it, I was so exhausted. I was like, oh, I'm not even mad anymore. That was a release for me to let go of this frustration, this anger, a way for me to get it out in a healthy way. And like I said, changing space. It changed my space. It helped change my mindset. So these are all things that helped me become a successful woman. Martial arts is amazing when you're working on overcoming anything and looking for a good workout. It's great physically, mentally, emotionally. It's confidence building. It's amazing. Emotional intelligence classes. This can transform you from nothing to something, just learning how to use your brain. And like you said, I've been out of these classes for almost a year, and right now I'm making big changes in my life, and I have been in and out of depression a lot. And it's not something that I would talk about publicly because I'm not trying to be like, oh, poor me. But that doesn't go away. What happened through your childhood doesn't go away. You learn with ways to become stronger and better. And it's pretty cool because I'm going to be getting a tattoo from you that represents something important to me. But I decided I'll only ever get tattoos on the right side of my body. And my intuition is wanting to hide who I was, wanting to hide what I went through, because it's embarrassing that I let myself get so weak that that's where I was. But now I'm learning those things can actually make you stronger. And I'm not proud of what I did to myself. I'll never feel that way, but I'm proud of who I've become. Very few people, you know, have come back from that. They turn to drugs, you know, women stripping, dancing, like all these kinds of obstacles. And I'm blessed enough that I fell into martial arts.
Wow. That's cool. That's an amazing story. And you're right. Statistically, I don't know the stats on that, but you're an exception for sure for people that have been through what you've been through and went to the razor's edge that you took it to and came out of it. And your ability to be smart enough to reach out to those types of people in that state you were in, I don't know. For me, that shows an extreme amount of character and innate wisdom that's in you. And, you know, they talk about old souls, you know. To me, that's an old soul, right? You somehow, somewhere back in your brain, you knew to do that, and it saved your life, and it got you on the path that you're on. And I just think that's, dude, you got my eyes all sweaty on that one. Jeez, no, that's so powerful. And I mean, and then, you know, in that there's forgiveness, right? I love that subject because forgiveness is also acceptance. Non-resistance is part of forgiveness. But I don't want to speak too much on that. I think I want to turn it back over to you. Like, you were unfairly treated by a lot of people. I mean, starting with maybe your own dad, you know, up until this other relationship. Just maybe, I don't want to make your dad out to be bad, but from the old school, like, oh,
Yeah.
you're a bad kid, you get smacked, you get a whooping, whatever. And that, honestly, from a certain generation, most dads were probably that way. It wasn't
Yeah,
even
it's
unusual.
not, yeah.
But still, I mean, culture is learning. I mean, that's totally unacceptable now. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, so, but anyway, have you forgiven the people that have done whatever to you? Truly.
So what I found is that, may sound cliche, forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Because trauma harbors these childhood fears inside of you. For instance, my big thing is feeling unworthy, not enough, never good enough. I wasn't good enough to be loved. I wasn't good enough to be treated right. Although I couldn't control what happened to me when I was a youth, as much as that person did mean things to me, I've actually learned to blame myself because I stuck around. Yes, I was underage. Yes, what they did was wrong. However, I was still old enough to be like, this person's hitting me. I don't want them to touch me. I'm done with it. This person's abusing me. I accepted that from my childhood. So my forgiveness, my healing was going back to my inner child and saying, you know what? It's okay. I forgive you. You're enough. It was about loving myself, learning how to, my healing all came from, you know, in these classes of forgiving myself for not making things different, forgiving myself for not loving myself, and really just finding who I am and finding love in that. And more than just who I am, finding love in my shadow. As you do these emotional intelligence, you sometimes try to shove down those bad parts of you, those parts of you that could be violent, angry. For a long time, the part of me that's like, you're trying to kill me, I'm like, oh, really? I'll fight till the death right now. Those were things that I learned are like, oh, that's bad. Let me shove that down. But I actually learned to love my shadow side, the negative things about me. I'm not trying to hide them anymore. I found a healthy way to release them because whether I like it or not, it's still part of who I am. And so with learning to love myself, learning to forgive myself, I thus forgave everyone in my life. My dad and I have an amazing relationship now. You know, my mom was going through a lot of stuff then too, so I didn't have support from them. I'm very blessed. My grandma raised me from about 8 months to 6 years old. So at 6 was when most of my struggles started. I have an amazing older sister who took care of me. So I just wanted to shed some light to the positive impacts I had. I'm so blessed and grateful to have had them guiding me. But yeah, that people say, you know, like forgive them, but really it's just helping yourself. And you can't forgive someone without refacing what you went through, which is why I think emotional intelligence classes are important, because if I had tried to face that on my own, I think I would have pulled myself back into rock bottom. But being able to be outwardly focused, be part of a group, talk to someone, helped me dissect my life and my decisions to choose an alternate route with healthy patterns now.
Dude, I love this. You've definitely done your homework. You've definitely done the work. I mean, and you're right about that. Forgiveness is for you. And you know, it's funny about forgiveness. I've talked to people a lot about this subject because I just find it interesting, and probably because I've had my own trauma and people I had to forgive, and I did a lot of thinking. I still do a lot of thinking about it. And one of the things I came to was, you know, for some people, and even myself, many years ago, it felt like to forgive someone was saying you were going to allow whatever that was to come back. And I always tell people that, I go, forgiveness isn't meaning you're going to allow it to happen again. You can forgive someone who hurt you and still at that same time, I mean, truly forgive them. Understand you have your own trauma. Yeah. You had your own problems, and that shit came in and it hurt me. I forgive you because I understand we're all born beautiful little innocent babies. None of us are born evil. Yeah. Things happened, and for some people they have a really blessed life and everything's peachy keen, and others it isn't. And almost always when you're being abused by somebody, look at their history. They were abused too, or something happened to them. And so that helps to get to that point. But the point I'm making is to forgive them. You can still forgive someone and never talk to them again. Yeah. You can forgive someone and tell them, don't call me, and if I see you, I'm calling the cops. But I'm not mad at you. In other words, you can have boundaries and still completely forgive the people that hurt you. And I think a lot of people hold on to resentment because they think it protects them. And it actually, when you have resentment inside you, because what you have in you attracts that, right? So if you're full of life and love, the years go on, you end up with a bunch of people around you that are full of life and love. If you're full of a resentment and holding on to fuck this person or fuck that, you'll end up with others with that type of vibe. So really holding on to resentment and not finding an ability to forgive others will just attract another character into your life. Different name, different circumstance, but similar situation. And you hear that from people like, I don't understand why all the guys I date are this way. I don't understand why all the bosses I have at work are. And that's why you haven't let go. You haven't let go of your resentment. You haven't forgiven yourself. You haven't forgiven the other. And until you do, the pattern that created that problem will repeat itself. So back to your point. I mean, you had said at the beginning, it is the greatest thing. Forgiving another person is the greatest thing you can do for yourself. But even better that you said was the act of forgiving yourself naturally led to the forgiveness of the others. Mm-hmm. It's like phase one is go into that inner child and forgive them. That little girl was doing the best she could with the knowledge that she had at that time. If you had better knowledge, if you had been through that course, you would have made different decisions, but you hadn't. Yeah. And so you did the best you could. And so from that perspective, I forgive you. 16-year-old Juliana, you did the best you could. And now you know more and you're going to do better. I just think that whole story can relate to anybody. And it's a story that could really help out the world as a whole. And it's really breaking a pattern is what it is, because, if I look at it from the perspective of this person did this, and this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say fuck you for the rest of my life. And I'm always going to be mad. But when I look at it from my decisions, in turn, you can never choose what someone's thinking, and you can't change somebody, and you can't make them do anything, no matter what, even if you are their parent, their wife, like, it doesn't matter. So it's just like, I really love that I can, look at it from that different perspective and really grow from it. No. That's a great, this is great. I'm glad. And thank you for sharing that. That's, that also shows a tremendous amount of where you're at, right? Because you're not only have done the work, you're at a place where you're willing to be vulnerable enough to even share with others. Like that's another level, right? Some people, that's almost like the top level when you're able to be that vulnerable. And I think I can see in you that, I think a lot of this comes from you want to help others. And you said that in the beginning, and you're not really going to be able to relate for people that you can help from that perspective. The first thing they want to see is that they can relate to you. Yeah. They don't want to hear that from a self-help program or some cocky dude in a business suit telling them how to be rad. It's like, bro, you haven't been through what I've been through. Don't tell me how to live my life. But I think when, and Chris is the same way. His story was similar. Like, he talks about the mentorship he gives young men in his gym. And we talked about it. Like, they listen to him because they know what he's been through. And they're like, oh, this dude's been through shit like I've been through. And it gives you an ability to have an impact on those people. So good for you.
Coming, I say from nothing to something, because there's been over 3 times where my life was over. It should have been over, whether it was by my hand or somebody else's. I can proudly say, like, I changed that pattern. Right now, I have healthy relationships in my life. I am so grateful. I am like, it's amazing, because it's like, now that I have forgiven all these things, I can see a pattern and kind of stop it before it starts. If I am being treated wrongly, as hard as it is, I'm totally fine to walk away. I might cry for a day or 2, but I can say, this isn't good for my life. This is where I want to be. And I can stick to it. It made me such a stronger person, and breaking that cycle feels so good, because I know that by the time I'm a parent, my children are not going to go through what I went through whatsoever. And it really, for other people out there, changing a cycle is the hardest thing ever, but you've seen people overcome addiction. You've seen them overcome everything. Like, moral of the story, everything is possible as long as you want it. If Scotty had come to me in rock bottom and said, hey, this is how you change your life, I wouldn't have cared. I had to reach out and want it. People say, things are a yes or a no generally. Like, if they're like, hey, do you want to change your life? And they're like, oh, maybe, tomorrow. It's a no. It's either I'm done with this shit and I'm doing something to make a difference. It's a solidified decision of changing your life. Yeah. And that's where beauty comes from. It's scary. It's hard. But outside of your comfort zone, outside of that box, is freedom, emotionally, physically, financially. And I think a lot of stories can attest to that. And one thing I've learned is my story is one of millions. Whatever you've been through, I can guarantee you can find someone out there that's been through it, no matter what it is. Loss of parents, abuse, addiction. There's stories of somebody who's overcome it and come into something beautiful. So instead of looking things at like, oh, poor me, I'm the only one that feels this way. Like, no, a lot of people feel this way, because it goes back to your core beliefs of wanting to be worthy, wanting to feel connected, wanting to be enough, we can all come together and really connect with anyone based on the emotions, not necessarily the situation. Your situation is way different than mine, but the emotions that came with the trauma, we all know what that feels like.
Yeah. There's a few things you said in there. One is we don't progress as human beings in a vacuum. We're tribal. We're tribal. We don't heal. I mean, maybe there's an exception. I don't know a single story of somebody that's come through something like that by just going into the mountains and sitting in a cabin by themselves. Although, more I think about that, that might in its own weird way work. Like, nature could probably heal them. But generally, there's always those exceptions. But generally speaking, we heal with other people. And you're right, to heal from these types of things, it's to get around people that are like-minded, that see it the same way, that'll support you, that'll encourage you, that'll teach you. And you found that tribe around you, and now that you're there, I mean, there's no going back. You'll never go back. And the other thing you said that I thought was really cool is this, this maybe thing is a no, right? That really reflects like commitment. And I mean, I'm 51. I look at the good things in my life. Every single one of them required 100% commitment. Yeah. The universe does not like wishy-washy, half-ass attempts at things. In fact, it's pretty much won't give you anything until you give it 100%. And that usually entails some level of risk and some level of fear and overcoming that fear. But it really likes the bold. Oh, that's what's the saying? Fortune favors the bold. That's what that saying meant, is if you want something bad enough, you've got to be 100% in. And when you do get that in, it doesn't happen. That's the other thing. It doesn't happen just because that next day. You got to be consistent. But it will reward you, whether it be a career, whether it be a marriage, whether it be healing yourself. That 100%, I'm in 100%. And sometimes it takes a rock bottom in your case. In a lot of cases, it takes that rock bottom. We as humans, we're pretty lazy in that way. It's like we are not going to, the guy's not going to quit smoking until the doctor finally says, you're going to die. And then they're like, okay, I've been thinking about quitting smoking my whole life, but now I'm really going to do it. Well, you could have done it 10 years ago, dude, but did we have to get to this point? Humans sort of have that in their nature, just to wait till it gets super bad before we finally go, okay, fuck it, I'm going to change this, And not everyone, but that seems to be a pattern. But yeah, 100% commitment. And I mean, everything you're talking about right now, it's so serving for your career choice. I mean, I'm trying to think, there's a lot of things you could be great at, including a pilot. I mean, that's its own crazy thing to do in life. But boy, this is a really, it's so fitting that you are a fighter. Yeah. When you hear the life story and the strengths you had to develop on a mental level to get through these things, boy, this is certainly going to serve you in your career, right? I mean, so let's talk about that a little bit. The career of a professional fighter, and I'm from a generation when I was young, 16. Girls didn't fight, and if you saw two girls fighting, it was crazy. It was like, oh my God, that girl just hit a girl, and now it's this new world where, and I think it's great. Women, equal rights, man. You girls want to get into these sports, come on in. But it is a little bit, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that there is a bit of spectacle to it to certain people that are older. I remember the first time I saw a female MMA fight, I was like, oh my God. I was hard for me to watch in a way. I was like, I can't see these girls hitting each other. Of course, I've grown past that. I thought maybe that the UFC was doing it as like a one-off spectacle thing. Like, are they just trying to pump the ratings? What are they doing? And I was wrong. And trust me, I'm going to get a lot of hate for saying that. But that's just how I felt. This is probably, 15 years ago when it first started ramping up. Now it's totally accepted. But you are a female fighter, and I want to talk about the female aspect, but also the life of a fighter, the commitments, the obligations, the struggle, and eventually maybe talk about this reality TV stuff. 'Cause that's its own weird shit to be on a reality TV show. But go ahead. What is it like being do you not even see a difference? Are you just like kicking back like it's no different for me than anybody else, or is it different to you?
It's definitely way different. I would like to start off, you're not weird in your thinking. My grandma, I was raised with her. She wasn't allowed to be in sports growing up. Women were not even allowed to be in sports. You had to have dresses down to your knees. It doesn't matter if it was rain or snow or wherever. You had to walk around in heels. Time is changing fast. I mean, the 10-year anniversary just happened of women being allowed in the UFC. Dana White, there's YouTubes out there of him saying women will never be allowed in the UFC. And I'm blessed. I came up with Liz Carmouche. She was the first female MMA fight ever for a belt against Ronda Rousey. So I came up with a woman that changed the surface of this sport forever. She was the first one ever in the UFC, which change the world pretty much, you know. And I do agree, because genuinely women are taught from a young age, don't speak up, do what you're done, be a good housewife. And that being said, men are taught to be strong, don't cry, don't show your emotions. If you've been hurt, stuff it down. These are things that are genuinely taught that are changing now. And it's like, men are learning that it's okay to open up and face your stuff, and you don't have to always be this strong man, that it's okay to process your feelings. And women are learning, hey, you know what, like, I can stand up for myself. I don't have to put up with you because my parents sold me to be married by you or whatever. Like, things are changing really fast, and we really get to learn. So I think that perspective is common. And yeah, I do believe women fighting is still a spectacle. I think I'm coming up in the perfect time, because in the very beginning, it was easy to get to the top because no women are doing it. In 10 years, it's going to be 10 times harder to get to the top because there'll be 10 times more women doing it. I'm right in a middle ground where there's a good amount of women fighters, but it's still not like the men's division. I can win 5 fights and be in the top 3 in title contention, where men in my weight division have to win 8, 10, 15. So I'm in a cool time where there's tons of competition, but it's not too extreme.
Tons of opportunity.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's pretty exciting.
But what I want to cut in there. What you're saying is true. Like I thought about it as you were talking.
Yeah.
The women that are the fact that women are fighting in MMA is really a result of the changing time, because it's not just women are changing everywhere.
Yeah.
Our whole structure, our whole social structure about what a woman is or should be is changing. So it's just a result of that change.
Yeah.
It's you guys showing up in sports like mixed martial arts. And it's very cool. I'm 100%, by the way, I was just kind of giving that perspective. I'm 100% supportive of that. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. And I didn't understand that aspect of the opportunity it presents at this particular time being a female fighter. There's a little, if you're good, you can get to that top quicker in a way. So that's cool.
And, I do believe, although like women are powerful and should be able to do their own things, being a woman, I want a husband one day, I think that women are naturally caretakers a little bit more than men. I believe, like cooking and cleaning and nurturing and loving children and stuff is in our nature from the beginning of time. So I still believe in being a woman and doing duties that I feel correlate to women. It doesn't mean men can't do them. It just means we're naturally more we're just naturally more prone to that motherhood side of things, that caretaker, where like men are like the go-getters go get food, which is why I'm glad there's divisions. Men should never fight women. Like men have such a different strength and power. I go with guys my size, I'm like, one punch, I'm gonna die. Even though I train just as hard and I do the same workouts, men and women are still different. And I think that men should feel powerful, women should feel powerful, and learn how to experience other things in life. But genetically, we are a way for a reason. So a lot of things from the past make sense to a certain extent. But back to your question, being a woman fighter is really interesting because, this is kind of the same for men and women. We spoke a little bit about it earlier, but if you're a hot girl, you're going to get paid 10 times more. It's just the end of it until you're Amanda Nunes and you're the multiple time world champ. Once you make it, it's great. But if you dress up sexy and show your body, I'm going to make more money than that girl who's married, who never posted a bikini pic, who is sheltering herself. Because like you said, women in this sport is a spectacle. People are still getting used to seeing women go to war and, if you see two hot chicks, they're at a bar drinking, they're in their hot little dresses and they're fighting each other, everyone's going to be like, whoa, two hot girls fighting. Like, it's not fair. It's not the best thing, but it is the way it is. And being a girl, it's like if you're in a relationship, you don't necessarily want to post about it because you have this persona. Like for me, I make a ton of money going out places and talking to people and being flirty. And although I am not hooking up with these people, whether I'm in a relationship or not, that's what they want from women in this sport. They want that fun, friendly, flirty, hot, like this is what makes you money. So that part is hard because being a hot man in the sport, you will get more women, but some of the greats in the world aren't necessarily the most handsome. They're not necessarily the most fit, but they're just good at fighting. To be a girl in the sport, just being good at fighting, it's going to take you 10 times longer to make it to the top than a girl who's hot, attractive, and a great body and good at fighting. Like, look at Paige Van Zandt, she's world famous and she's hot. Like, I'm like, God, she's beautiful. It's something that's like, I still look at her bikini pics on Instagram. So it's definitely an interesting thing being a woman in the sport of like having your boundaries of what you will and won't do, but also letting your personality shine a little bit more helps you get places faster. And it's not necessarily right, but it is the way it is. If I post a picture of my butt, I'm going to get 15,000 likes. If I post a picture of me sweating and training, there's going to be like 100. And on media, listen, likes aren't the most important, but media gets people paid. This gets me sponsorships. This makes a difference in my life. So there's all kinds of love and hate of like, oh, you look hot, or focus on training. The moral of the story is when I make myself beautiful and presentable, I make more money, and it helps me in my fighting. It helps create my platform. So that's what most of the women are doing nowadays. They're dressing up to help create their position.
I like your honesty. You know, I think there's a lot of people that are doing that and act as if they're not doing that. And not just fighters. I mean, heck, we've all been on Instagram long enough to be like, I mean, almost any really beautiful girl's Instagram page who's posting their body a lot and you click, I mean, it's always over 200,000 followers. Here I am over here, 30-year career grinding as an artist, and I'm fighting for my 50K, you know?
Yeah.
And this girl's been on, she's got only 50 posts, and she's obviously a model, and, you know, 500,000 followers. So it's a real thing, and it is part of your, you know, it's part of your, I call it a job. I hate to use the word job. It's your because it's such a passionate thing you're doing in your life. But that's the wrong word. But you do have to make money. You do have to promote yourself, and you do. That's a side of this. And like you said, when you're the world champ, I guess you can just be like, fuck all that. But until then, bills got to get paid. Sponsorships have to get paid. You got to get, you know, the money gets you better training, get you better opportunities.
Yeah.
All that's
they're right. You definitely
honest.
You don't have to present yourself in that sexy way. But all I'm saying is 99% of the time, the people who don't are just not making as much money. They're working harder, they're grinding harder, and it's 10 times harder to get themselves out there. So that's like an interesting thing, and, you know, being a female in the sport. But, you know, I like to look beautiful. I've actually gotten a lot better. Like, I don't necessarily post so much bikini pics because I do want it to be more about fighting. But like I spoke about earlier, I want stability. I want to make money. I want people to want to bring me to their events. I want to have the energy. I want to be fun to talk to. I want to connect with people. And that comes with exuding the feminine part of me. So it's definitely like a cool and interesting part of our sport. And, you know, I have so much respect for those who feel, you know what, I don't want to show my body and I'm going to stick to it. More power to you, girl. You are badass. But I've
either one is
taken
fine.
a little bit of the easier route of like, I'm gonna use whatever I can to help make it into stability.
Either way is fine, and neither should be judged.
Yeah.
You know, the girl who doesn't do that shouldn't judge someone who does, and the girl who's doing it shouldn't judge the other one. And, you know, it's okay. And, you know, let's face it, everyone, it's not just women, men do it too. Good looking, I've seen those guys. If I was super mega handsome, I'd probably have a different little bit of a portfolio. You know, my profile would be different.
Who's not saying you're super mega handsome? I know wifey's out there is like, that's my man right there.
She thinks I'm handsome. That's good. But I get it. And I think that's great. I mean, obviously there's a line. I mean, there's some crazyville you could be going to, which would be like, whoa, Juliana, I don't know. But
chill out, bro.
Yeah, I mean, beauty is beauty, and if why not show the world women are beautiful, men are beautiful, and to show that off, there's no crime in that.
Yeah,
but
shitty as it is, the world just favors beauty, like women, like, and it's like I don't think that's something that's been around since the beginning of time, and it's definitely like almost worth looking into. Of like, I now don't think that just image is beautiful. I find like if I'm in a relationship with somebody, their looks are probably third on the list. Characteristics are my number one. So everybody out there, your characteristics, your personality, your spirit, that's what makes you beautiful. But if we're talking statistically speaking, you can't show your character on media. And if media is how you make money, like, it is the way it is.
It is the way it is. But, you know, and my original question was, you know, the female aspect in the sport. And that's a very honest, I like your honesty around that. I think there's a lot of people, I think everybody kind of knows that, but whether or not people want to talk about it is not always the case. And that's cool of you to share that. And, you know, back to the sport, the career. Another thing that really fascinates me about this career, and I think about this a lot when I watch you guys do what you do, it is so, it's just, you're either on top or on bottom. And, you know, there's no middle. Most careers, you get a little bit of, like even my career, like I've been on top on certain years and I've won contests, but in between those wins and some losses where I had the bad days, but in between those, I still had this regular job that was still relatively fulfilling. And I know I'm not saying that there is no fulfillment in between your big events. I know there's fulfillment in your training. There's fulfillment. But in the end, it comes down to this one moment. And when you win, you make money and you move up. And when you lose, you go down and down. It's very black and white. And in that way, I guess my question and thoughts around that is, how do you deal with that? Like, this right here, you win the Ultimate Fighter, top of the world. That's huge. Come from underdog, win it. Then you go off to London and you lose.
Yeah.
Now, it's not the end of your career. You're young. You're coming up, but still, from top to, I mean, that's got to be tough to deal with the up and the down of that type of sport.
Yeah. Fighters and people don't like it when I say this. When I say it to people's face, they're like, and get all awkward, whether you're a fighter or not. But this is the reality. Fighting is a roller coaster. When you win, it's the best day of your life. You're on cloud nine. When you lose, it's the worst night of your life. You want to die. You hate yourself. If somebody says, oh, that loss is fine, I'm sorry, you're not a real fighter. Because you lose half your money. Everyone and their mother talks about how horrible you is. They nitpick everything. When you win, you're so awesome and people love you. And although people's opinions don't necessarily matter, it feels terrible to go out there and fail. People say, oh, don't look at it as a failure. But I'm sorry, when you have a goal and you've spent months working for it and you don't get the outcome you want, in the back of your head, you're like, I fucking failed. It's just the way it is. And people don't like the reality of it, but that's how I feel, you know? And here's another crazy thing about our sport of extremes is the highs don't last very long, but in my opinion, the lows last longer. Until you get that win. Because when you can win a world title and it can be the best night of your life, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, on to the next one. And that's how I felt after winning Ultimate Fighter. I had just worked for months. I went through all this adversity. I went through this fucking house where I was locked in rooms with people I'm going to be fighting, and there's so much drama, no connection to the world, no phone, no computer, no TV, no music. No music was a hard one. Locked in a house with the people you're going to be fighting, no connection to family, no talking to anybody, literally nothing to do but just train and fight. And the focus is great, but, once I won that, I was so excited. I would say maybe for about 2 or 3 weeks, I'm like, I did it. Fuck yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, okay, what's next? Now I'm at the bottom of the totem pole in a much steeper division. So it's like, how can I celebrate the win forever when now I have a complete step up in competition in front of me? Juliana Pena, my coach and Ultimate Fighter, said this: don't get married to your wins and don't get married to your losses. I love that. That's the outlook you need. I'm still young in my career, so I do feel married to my losses. That being said, I feel like 5 months was too long to prepare for Veronica Hardy, who I fought in London. I had a really tough camp. Moral of the story, she was better than me that day. Her coach had an amazing plan. I lost. However, there was things feeding into it. I've never left the country for a fight. And so I was on 9 hours time change. I couldn't sleep. My weight was fluctuating. I had nowhere to go to eat. I was living in and out of hotel rooms. It was just like I wasn't prepared for the physical differences. I felt like shit going into that fight. And it doesn't matter. I should be able to beat my opponent on my worst day. So moral of the story, she was better than me that day. I will come back stronger. But now I'm learning all these things that feed into it. And I harbored so much hate for myself for not performing to my best potential. I still haven't let it go. And I'm learning to look at it as a growing and a learning experience. But I want to be the best. I want to show the world that I belong here. And I am learning to take each one a little bit easier. But I didn't deal with that low really well. Literally, as I was walking out, I called the matchmaker and I was like, give me another chance. And then a few hours later, I was like, I'm horrible at this. I want to die, which is like, maybe it's more me because I've overcome, like, I'm always dealing with depression, and like, it's hard to not be manic in your sadness when your life is a roller coaster of these highs and lows. But man, I I had so much hate for myself that I had to let go and become better and stronger because it's part of it. It's part of the process. But that goes back to emotional intelligence. That's how I overcome these things of looking of like, look what I've overcome in my life. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be stronger, and being able to refocus on what's good for me. Part of the hardest thing for me is I always say like, oh, I don't care about people's opinions, but people can write nice comments on my posts. And as soon as there's one mean one, I want to be like, man, F you, blah, blah, blah. Oh, my striking's so terrible. You get in the ring with me then, when in reality, those things don't matter. So I think that's part of my young career, is like really not caring and just being grateful for the support. And like we said earlier, forgiving myself for having a bad day. I had a shit day. I wasn't my best self. I couldn't rest. And now that I've forgiven myself, I am super excited to look to the future to be better. But it's like hard to find stability in a games of highs and lows. I mean, right now there's like a Conor McGregor series on Netflix. I just started watching it last night, and I'm like realizing like even the best in the world goes through these things, and most people just aren't that vocal about it. It's like awkward when you talk about hard things. And so I'm learning to like somewhat mix a little comedy in there, like occasionally make it funny so they're not like, ooh, this is like awkward. I
love that about you.
You know,
You're
like
so real.
Like I am a little awkward. Like I make shit awkward when I talk about how things really are, but I would rather just be honest and vulnerable than fake. Like, yeah, fighting's great. I love it. It's all good.
How do you feel about that loss? Oh, just a great learning experience.
Yeah, it's like, fuck you. I can learn from my wins too. I didn't need to lose to learn. I hate that. I do need to learn to be better about losses. I mean, like, I cannot take any positive words for about 2 weeks after my fight. If you're like, man, I'm proud of you. You went out there and did it. I'm like, oh, you're fucking proud that I went out there and failed? Oh, you're proud that I lost? Like, I have to shut myself off from media and talk to no one except for the people that understand what it's like, that are like, listen, you know, you didn't get submitted. You weren't knocked out cold. Like, or people who are like, you know, now you get a grow from this and come back stronger. I don't want to hear positivity when I'm mad at myself. And that's part of a self-growth thing that I need to be much better at. And I want to say, you know, with the more losses, the more you get used to it. But I don't want any more freaking losses. I'm like ready to go kill it and win. So I'm learning to take my lessons and be more positive and be a better person. And I'm learning to not care about the negativity. And I'm sure you can attest to this. No matter what you're in, there's naysayers. I'm sure you're like, oh, I want to be a tattoo artist. And they're like, no, bro, you'll never make money doing that. Why are you starting a podcast? Nobody's going to listen to you. Yeah. And you're like, I don't care. I want to do it anyway. Yep. And so that's kind of like what fighting is. It can really translate to anyone. If you're shooting for a goal and people are too scared to go for it, they're going to try to drag you down and tell you it won't work because they're still in their comfort zone. Yeah. And
your success puts a mirror to them. Mm-hmm. Right? They can't have you succeed, because if you succeed, then they have to face the fact that it could have been done, and why didn't they do it? Yeah. You know, so there's this natural force of certain folks that are just going to want to pull you back down with them. Get back down here and be a loser with me. And you know, they don't like. There's something to that, and it goes back to, you know, there's always going to be haters, and the higher you go up in life, the more they're out there, and getting comfortable with that is part of the process, and having enough self-love to recover from the downs is huge. And that kind of goes back to your original story, you finding that self-love to get through those things you went through. Well, that's a fucking great skill you learned, and it's probably helping you a lot for this sport when you do have a loss. Even though, and that's a funny thing too, is, you know, to really be a champion, it's a razor's edge, because you gotta be like you're talking right now, like, no, dude, I am not okay with losing.
No, I never will be. Right.
But then when you're going to lose, all the champions have losses. So, you know, almost looking at like those are going to happen. I would look at it like numbers. Like, all right, there's a certain amount of losses I got to take before I'm the world champion. So there was a loss. Great. That's off my list. You know, kind of, that's how I'm trying to help. I'm like trying to help you right now.
Yeah, no.
But I don't know. But it's a weird thing, because champion mindset is fucked losing. And so it's really difficult to get over that stuff. But if you didn't have that urge to be a champion, you would be more okay with losing. So I don't know.
An L's really lost a light of fire under your ass, and that should go for more than just fighting for regular things in life. Like, even before I was fighting, when I would apply for a job, maybe the first job said no, and then I kept applying, and then the third job I applied for was way better than the initial one in the first place. So you got to take those L's and turn it into growth. It's just hard. Now I'm learning to make it more comedy. Like, people will be like, your striking's terrible, you're retired, you're never going back to the UFC, you're done, you suck. And now I'm just like turning it into something funny. I'm like, yeah, you're right, maybe I will suck, but hey, you sitting home on the couch, you got guns like this, baby? I'm like, oh yeah, you're miserable at your job at home, you got abs like this? Ooh, like I'm like turning it into a funny, confident thing. And like, I feel like that kind of helps me overcome it a little. It's like you said, finding things that you love about yourself, because no matter what happened in that fight, I'm 1% stronger. I'm 1% better. And, that loss lit a fire under my butt. I'm like, my heart is racing. I am so hungry to get out there and prove myself again. I hope I'm the underdog. I hope I'm in the blue corner, because it's like I'm ready to show the world who I am, and I'm grateful that I took this experience of a loss now rather than when I'm fighting for the title. And like you said, like everybody says losing is part of it, and it genuinely happens in the beginning of your career. And I'm still a baby in this sport. I've got so much to learn, but I'm growing and I'm learning to do it a little more silently. And it's really exciting. Like I just can't wait. And I'm learning, like, the thing that makes a happy life is finding things you're grateful for, especially when I'm in those lows. Is like, I get to be like, I'm so grateful I'm in the UFC. I'm actually getting paid. There's a lot of adversity, speaking about, oh, UFC doesn't pay people enough, this and that. Maybe so. However, you're still getting paid 10 times more than every other place. So if you have an opportunity, be grateful for it and make something of it. I'm healthy. I'm fit. I have my family. I have my supporters. So making myself look at things I'm grateful for is...
gratitude is...
Yeah, gratitude is so huge.
It's huge. Just today, on the drive here, I had a pretty rough week. I'm with this show and my 3 businesses and my tattoo career and my children and a few other things. I just had a few days in a row where I was sitting in my office and there's like a fucking 1,000 sticky notes and 18 texts I haven't gotten back to, and then my wife's wondering why that didn't, and I just had this moment where I'm just like, fuck, man, I'm one guy, goddamn, and I called my mom this morning and I was venting like that, and when I was done venting, she said, I got a call from your Aunt Jeannie, and Jenna's not doing so good. Jenna's my cousin who got in a car accident when she was a young girl and lost the use of her legs. She's been in a wheelchair ever since. And now she's got complications with her back and might have to have surgery. And she's been going through this for 15 years, 20 years. I don't even know how long. And man, in that moment, I just was like, whoa. I need to shut the fuck up. I don't even have problems. I was embarrassed of myself for even allowing myself to get into a place on my drive to work where I really thought I was having the Aaron pity party that, I've got meanwhile, I've got gratitude, right? I'm healthy. I've got a beautiful wife. I've got a family. I've got a job I love. I could go on and on and on. But it's all relative, and we all have our struggles. I don't care if you're a multimillionaire. Elon Musk probably has his issues too. But going back to gratitude, and I do this. I didn't do it until my mom mentioned that, and I snapped out of it. But finding the things you do have, it's a great way to cure, and maybe even looking at some folks that are really, truly fucked, because there are people in this world that...
Outward focus.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
Scotty owns a cancer hospital in Mexico called Chipsa, Scott and Ed Nelson. And when I was climbing out of rock bottom, they said, hey, why don't you come to the hospital and talk to some of the patients? Because I was like, I hate myself. I don't want to be here, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, whatever you say. You guys are helping me out. I went there and I saw people battling stage 4 cancer with a tumor the size of a basketball sticking out of their head. And people dealing with the hardest things seem to have the most positive outlook. Why? Because it's keeping them alive. I'm sitting there talking to this guy who's fucking dying for real. And he's like, I can't wait to get home and I'm going to grow plants with my kids. And like, just like, I'm so happy that I'm here. I get to breathe again. And I'm like, this person's going through more pain than I could ever imagine, physically, mentally, spiritually, and they're positive. So yeah, like it's important to catch yourself in those victim mentality moments because we all have them. But I think that's when, like, you know, having somebody like your mom or having somebody point out to you, look what's going on, that helps bring you back to gratitude. Because when you're inward focused, when you just see yourself in your life, everything is a big deal. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say the past few months I've been like having days where it's tough to get out of bed, and it's like I'm in a better position than 90% of the world. Yeah, I'm sitting here just like, but when you feel something, you feel it, and it's important to try to process it. But then, like you said, look at things and be like, man, I really am blessed.
I think it's a matter of how long you stick in it. Like, I think it's healthy
to process,
to kind of vent. Like,
Yeah.
sure, a guy with a lot have maybe an hour just to cry about it for a minute. Sure. But then be done. It's when you get stuck in it for a long period of time. Now it's time to stop. You got to have the thing that can snap you out of it. And recognizing the struggles of others is a huge way to get you. It helps me a lot. I know that, you know. And also gratitude is an interesting thing because I believe in I hate this word, the law of attraction, but it's overused, you know, all the self-help people, but I do believe it works. I mean, what you are, where you are at mentally seems to kind of show up in your life around you if you're consistently in that state. And gratitude, when you think about it, is in gratitude, what you're saying to the universe is, I have enough. I'm happy with what I have. I have enough money. I have enough health. I have enough friends. I feel grateful. So by saying you have enough, you attract enough. You attract more enough. And when you're bitter and I don't have enough, I should have more, you attract not having enough and needing more. So it's a weird catch-22. So gratitude is beautiful on many levels, but especially if you guys are out there looking for more ways to create success in your life and better relationships and better everything, man, gratitude meditation.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big one.
Gratitude doesn't mean being happy with where you're at, right? Because if you're just happy with where you're at and you're like, oh, everything's great, I'm grateful, you're not going to evolve. So it's like, it's interesting. It's such a weird line of being like, you know, I'm grateful, I'm here, and I'm happy. And that creates an opportunity to do something more. Because if I was just like, oh, I made it to UFC, I'm grateful, and, you know, whatever happens, I don't care. And I was just so grateful to be here that, you know, the losses didn't matter. What would push me into becoming a better version of myself? You know, I want to give a shout out to 10th Planet San Diego. This is, I started over, I started over there very young in my career. I have had this far all my fights with them. Richie Martinez also would probably be someone cool to have on the show. He is just so many tattoos. Richie Martinez, Manolo Hernandez. Manolo has an insane story of overcoming, also literally like head tattoos all over. And Bill Crawford. These men helped change my life. You know, 10th Planet has been the place where I'm actually in the middle of transitioning. I'm in the process of moving to Spokane, Washington. I have, you know, I'm in a new relationship, which is kind of what's pushed me into making this change in my life. And I do feel like in the end, it'll be beneficial in my career, which isn't why I'm leaving. I think, 10th Planet is an amazing gym. I have the most amazing surroundings, but sometimes we spoke about when you're out of your comfort zone, it helps you grow. I made the decision to move, yet I've been so depressed. I've been terrified. I'm so scared of moving away, but I feel like maybe it'll be good for me in a lot of ways. So yeah, I wanted to take a moment to shout that out. I'm in a huge transition in life where I'm hungry, I'm motivated, I'm scared, I'm excited, and it's just, you know, I'm grateful, but just because I'm grateful doesn't mean that I'm just gonna stay in that position forever. I'm gonna elevate with that gratitude.
Hey, you can still be grateful and be a hard driver.
Yeah.
You can do both simultaneously.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. That's great. You know, I'll tell you what. Seems like a good moment then to move over to this. Tell me about the tattoo we're going to do today.
Yeah.
What does it mean? What does it represent? I know they're Japanese kanji, which are Japanese symbols that represent, say in English, what it means.
It's basically, it means warrior. I'd like to preface this of today I'm getting a small tattoo that stands for a lot of growth in my life. It stands for who I am. It stands for my spirit, and it stands for what I want. Eventually, I'm going to get a half sleeve from this amazing man here, and I went to Japan. It was my first big out-of-country travel. I went alone, and I stayed in hostels, which was cool. I got to connect with people. I went to every temple that I could possibly go to. I literally made it like Legend of Zelda, where I was like, oh, I'm going to hit every temple, every shrine, and like mark it down in my book. I got the stamps, I got the handwritten, and I really found love for the culture. And in Asia, the Asian culture, fighting in Asia is totally different than here. There's a different level of respect for things in general than America. Like, the arena is completely silent. In America, the second you hit the ground or there's one lull, they're like, boo, and everyone's drunk and talking shit and speaking their mind, which can be great sometimes. But, you know, in Asia, things are just a little different, and people are a lot more respectful, and they have very deep meanings in their culture, which I resonated with in my time there. And so the tattoo that I'm going to get today, it means warrior, and I'm going to bring up basically the Japanese full meaning of it. Basically, it's two symbols, and it means bushi. The bu means brave, war, army, and martial arts, and the shi means a great man, military personnel, or a samurai. And so it really talks about not only fighting, but what are you fighting for? It brings into term of like, who are you as a person? Are you just fighting to fuck people up, or are you fighting for a reason to make a difference? Are you fighting to protect your people? You know, the ones you love. Are you doing it as an act of love and protection and making a difference, or are you doing it to negotiate with yourself the bad things that happen to you, so I'm just going to take it out on this person? So to me, this symbol is so much more than just getting out there and fighting. It's about my character and what I'm going to do with it. Cool. And basically, bushi is a Japanese traditional word for a warrior. It originally meant those who arm themselves with a katana, swords, and armor, but the bushi were professional warriors who made combat their family business, which is huge for me because I want to be a mom and have a family, and my kids are going to be raised in jiu-jitsu. Like I said before, I feel like all youth should learn self-defense to avoid trauma. I think that this, the act of confidence, warrior, defending yourself, I think that should be a family business. I want all children to learn basic self-defense, so if someone goes to injure them, they can make a change. They can, someone's going to kidnap you, you can arm drag them, get away from it.
Right. No.
So this tattoo, being part of the bushi is part of like my life experience there and resonating with their culture and part of who I am. And I love that it talks about the katana because, my fight name's Killer Miller. So if you look at my Instagram, I kind of wish I brought one today. It's all packed up because I'm moving, but I have this kind of like spin on a Jason mask, a killer mask. Right. And one of my shirts is like me standing there with a katana with a killer mask, but dressed in something sexy. And it confuses people because they're like, I don't know whether she's scary or hot, a little bit of both. I'm like, good, yeah, like you can be beautiful and a warrior, you can be hot and scary, you can stand up for yourself, you can be a whole mix of things. I think as a person, part of why people watch is like I confuse them a little. They're like, what is good? I guess I'll just listen. Like, I don't know what's going on with it.
A category.
Love it or hate it. They're like, what the fuck is going on with this chick over here? So, this tattoo is just really important for me because I'm putting it in a place on my arm where I can look down and it'll mean something of, like strength and courage and my spirit and what I'm fighting for and who I am, that I'm a warrior, that I can survive and get through anything that I need to. And another cool part is like where I'm getting it on my wrist. This tattoo is really for me, not necessarily for the world, but as I said, I'd overcome things of like, this scar on my arm from my past, I've always wanted to cover it, but I actually decided to leave it there because this is kind of like a tattoo and a reminder of what I went through and what I never want to go back to and what I can change, and it's now part of who I am. So I will only ever have tattoos on the right side of my body. I feel like my future husband is lucky. He's going to have the best of both worlds. He's going to have my tatted wild side. But, you know, I turn around and I'm like, oh, little angel, clean cut over here. So he'll have like 2 of me, you know, not just personality-wise. But yeah, so I'm really excited and I'm really grateful. And eventually I'm going to want, you know, a warrior with a katana and maybe slap a killer mask on it or something. Yeah. But today it's just a traditional meaning that is really just going to empower me to continue on the path that I'm looking for.
Well, and don't say just because every tattoo counts. And I love that one too, because it's a warrior with noble purpose. Yeah. Is really what I heard in that explanation, and your whole story up until now has just been that, you know, you're a warrior, but you have this other noble purpose that's driving you through your career as a warrior. So I think it's super appropriate, and it's also super cool whenever you have a life change and you're about to have one, like you move tomorrow, right? Yeah. I think it's awesome, and I've done this many times in my life. Right before a life change, I get tattooed, and then that tattoo is always a reminder of that event before that change happens. So on every level, I love it. And it can be a small tattoo. I love it. I'm honored to put a tattoo on you. I mean, just in this short time I've gotten to know you, you're a pretty amazing person. I really do think you are. Your ability to be so honest and intimate and share details of your life shows an extreme amount of confidence and character. And I'm really stoked to have met you and to be able to do this tattoo for you. And I look forward to seeing you in that cage, and I'll be bragging to my friends. Hold on, I'll pause it, and I'll be like, you see, I did that right there. Yeah. So this is an honor for me too. So
I feel beyond blessed and grateful for your conversation. I feel like normally some podcasts it feels like an interview and you're shy, but I just feel like I'm speaking with a friend. So thank you for creating a comfortable space. I mean, guys, I think we should do a 360. This place is amazing. The art in here, I'm like, I had to take 20 minutes just to start to observe before we could even start because it's so awesome. I feel like maybe I should have had this pulled up. I have quite a bit of tattoos already, so having you add to it is like, it's an honor for me. And you know, I don't know if I should say a little stories with tattoos now or after the fact, or
let's do it now.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us what those are. And you know,
right.
we'll get some photos of them on our break, and we can superimpose them on the screen so people can see what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the first one I'd like to talk about, it says jiu-jitsu, and this tattoo I got in Singapore with Alima Leigh McFarlane and a couple other girls during a jiu-jitsu camp, and we decided we were going to get married to the game that night. And the purpose is basically it's like, if you're going to make it in this sport, you have to be committed and you have to be married to it. Well, clearly I didn't know shit about marriage because I was the only one out of 4 girls that got it on the wrong hand. Yeah, so I didn't know for about a week. I'm like, yeah, I married the game, and like my friend's like, your left hand is your wedding ring, and I'm like, ooh, that shows how much I know about relationships.
That'll be for your next marriage.
So now, you know, I'm promised to the game. This one's really special. Most of my cool tattoos came from out of the country experiences, actually. This tattoo is, it's a trunk monkey. Let's see if I pulled it up high enough. Yeah, so this is my trunk monkey. I got this done in Uruguay when Liz Carmouche faced Valentina Shevchenko for the world title. I get called trunk monkey because when I was coming up, I was the only amateur that would go on the pro runs. Basically, what you do is you get dropped off at the bottom of the hill. You have 5 minutes to sprint straight uphill. We get picked up and drove back down to the bottom. Well, even though I was taller and a little bit bigger than some of these girls, I was the only amateur. So when we would run out of space, someone had to sit in the trunk. That was me. And they called me the trunk monkey because they would open the trunk and I'd pop out and be like, ah, and just start sprinting up the hill like this crazy little monkey. And I'm definitely just like, I have hops and I swing around all the time, and it represents my style. And it kind of just stuck. I became the trunk monkey. You know, before I was financially stable, we'd be traveling and someone wouldn't finish their food or their drink. They're like, trunk monkey. And I'm like, let's go. I was so stoked to be little trunk monkey. I'm like, the leftovers, all that, pass it over. over. I didn't care if I was in the trunk. I didn't care how I got there. I just wanted to be with the pros and part of the action. So Liz she's the girl-rilla. And so she chose the monkey. She chose the symbol. And she chose the weapon. The weapon is a tire iron. And she chose this because there's a Subaru commercial where this guy is getting robbed. And he presses a button that says trunk monkey, and a trunk monkey pops out of the trunk with a tire iron. He beats up the robber and then is off with his day. And so that's kind of like me. You know, I may look all cute and fluffy, but when it comes to fighting, like, I will just pop out of nowhere with my little crazy weapon and, you know, fight for it and protect those I love. So that was my Uruguay tattoo. On my foot, I have two. One is a shaka. It's a skull shaka. This is when Alima had one of her Bellator fights in Hawaii. And my coach Manolo and I got a matching tattoo there. I barely remember this. I was very drunk. But basically, it just represents it's all good, bro. Alima had gone through a loss that night. She hurt her neck, and it was just like, it was a tough fight. However, she came up on top, and, you know, she's like, listen, it is a loss. She handles her losses way better than me. She's like, it's all good, bro. I'll come back stronger. And so I love that I got that shaka, because it's like, even in adversity and in struggle, in the end, it's all good, bro. It's all going to be okay. The tattoo next to it said, be the change. This is a testament to my personality. When my sister was getting married at her bachelorette party, we got blacked out, and I don't even remember getting the tattoo. Her best friend Tori was like, hey, if you get a tattoo with me, I'll pay for it. And I was like maybe 21, and I was broke. So I'm like, no, you'll pay for a tattoo. Let's go. And I woke up, and the tattoo I chose was be the change. So it shows that even in my drunken stupor, I wanted to be something good for the world. And I really wanted to be the change. And I put a little wave at the end of it, because I'm a beach baby, San Diego. I'm a water baby. And I love it. I have a tattoo over on my side here. I'll show you guys just a little bit of a glimpse. So basically, this tattoo on my side, this infinity symbol, forever and ever, one love, I got when I was 15 years old in a hotel room. Somebody did it with their own tattoo gun. My closest friend named Dev passed away. He was the first person I ever smoked weed with. And at the time, I was like, forever and ever, one love, baby. But now I think more of what it represents is just that the things you care about really can be for life. The peacock feather I got a year later when I was 16 years old. And I, not proud of it, but I stole my sister's ID. And I went to a professional, got it done. And basically, when we were children growing up the street, there was peacock feathers. There was peacocks running around, and we would collect their feathers, and I would have them all over my room. And what the feather represents for me is childhood, and that's what I got it through. That's why I got it through the tattoo of forever and ever. There's been a lot of death in my life. I've seen it physically, and was a really tough time, but there's still beauty in it. I see a peacock feather, and these birds are losing their feathers. It's almost a sad thing, but then you see how beautiful it is. So even though you're going through loss, something beautiful can come out of it. So my childhood was hard, but I still found beauty in it. So that's a feather. This one is one of my favorites, and it's really exciting. All the other tattoos I'm going to show you were done by Chris. His business is called The Tattoo Store. He's incredible. I know he's a fan of yours. When I started looking at you on,
what's his last name?
Chris Anters. Yeah. So when I looked up your page, actually, I had saw that like he liked the majority of your posts. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. So he did this tattoo for me when I was about to go into Ultimate Fighter. My grandma had fell and broke her hip. I feel like I didn't spend enough time talking about her. She showed me unconditional love. She's been the most amazing influence. She raised me from 8 months to 5 years. you know, of course I love my mom, but she is like that mother figure to me. You just can't replace those young years of life. Right before Ultimate Fighter, she fell and she broke her hip, and she was in and out of the hospital, and she was dying. And when I got the call, I left, and I didn't know if I was ever going to see her again. And I knew I wanted a tattoo for her, but I didn't want to wait until she was dead. I wanted her to see it. I wanted her to know, hey, you're going to be on my body for the rest of my life, watching over me. So before I left, when I was in and out of the hospital, I called Chris and I was like, I need this tattoo. My grandma loves butterflies. In her house, like in Brazil, they like collect these beautiful butterflies and they have them in art and stuff. She had butterfly everything. So I went to her bedside and I said, I'm getting a tattoo for you. And she's like, no, like, I don't really like tattoos. And I was like, well, I'm doing it whether you like it or not. So I'd love for you to choose. So she chose a butterfly, and I had her sign her signature, Nelsie Knudsen, and NK, while she was a little bit stable at the time. And I got it tattooed. And this is actually incredible because she loves it now. Every time she sees me, she's like, let me see my butterfly. I got it over my right shoulder, and it's as if she's looking over me no matter what I'm doing. So she's here with me. She's with me for the rest of my life. And this is the tattoo over my right shoulder. If you can see the NK, that's her signature. I don't know if this is covering it
It is a little bit.
or not.
Here, I'll help you. It's right like that. There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
It's well
So it's
done.
supposed to look almost like a little 3D, like
Yeah.
it's flying.
Yeah, there's a little shadow, drop shadow underneath it.
Yeah,
It's
so that one was really special because I knew that no matter what happened in Ultimate Fighter, I'd have her there with me, and I just came to terms with it, and it let me focus on the situation at hand. This tattoo is probably one of my favorite. It represents all my favorite things in the universe that is natural. Waterfalls are my absolute most favorite thing in the world. When I'm under a waterfall, I feel like I'm being rushed clean. Water is an insane cycle for life. It goes from the sky, falls from the sky into the ground, and most of our world, 80% of our world is water. 80% of our bodies is water. Water is everything. I feel like water is life. To me, water is life. And waterfalls, I feel like, are just, I find so much happiness hiking to them and falling under them. And I love the trees and the mountains. And my all-time favorite time of day is sunset and sunrise, no matter what's going on. When you see a sunset, it's like life is giving us a little piece of art. Like, some sunsets are so beautiful, it looks like it's painted into the sky. And it's like incredible to me. I'm like, dude, every day life gives us these tidbits of beautiful art that are increatable. Like, pictures don't do justice to how beautiful the art of life is. So it's got that. The stars, I've always had this weird obsession with the stars and the universe. It's like, I can sit up and look at the stars, and it's just like the science of it is incredible that, you know, supposedly stars are long gone other planets who exploded, and their light takes billions of light years to get to us. And like, the science behind stars are insane. I can sit there and stare at them all night. I love the stars. I love the universe. And, you know, hibiscus flowers and trees. And yeah, so this is one of my most meaningful tattoos, is just my love of the natural beauty of life. After my Ultimate Fighter win, I got this tattoo, which is Anubis. Anubis is an Egyptian god. He was the original god of the afterlife, basically of mummification and of the weighing of souls. Anubis didn't decide whether you live or die. The scale did. So whether you believe in God, good energies, spirits, whatever you believe in, that's who's weighing the souls. He just puts the heart on there, and it sees the scale of if you're going to be sent to the afterlife or if you're doomed forever. And all my tattoos are from places I've been. So I actually went to Egypt for 2 weeks. I have a friend, Roya, that lives in there. We traveled to all the temples, and I had an insane connection to Anubis. And after my last fight, I was like, I want the god of the afterlife on my right hand, and I want to be able to throw this punch with power. One day I'm going to knock someone out solid with my right hand. I can just feel it. My striking's still improving, but I'm like, I'm going to send you to the afterlife with this right hand here, with this bitch right here. I'm going to send you to the afterlife.
Here comes Anubis, motherfucker.
Yeah, so this arm is really my life and death part of it. Right. And this tattoo here is Osiris, who is kind of like the brother to Anubis, but basically it's the god who took his place. And Osiris is like, it's interesting because he looks like more of death, but he's not. Osiris is the god of the entire afterlife, not necessarily the weighing of souls, of life and death, heaven and hell, fertility, creation. And Osiris came in and basically, like our times are evolving. Same with the Egyptian culture. As times evolved, this god overtook him and became of all things. And what I love about that is between the afterlife, whether you believe it or not, the importance is of how you live your life and what you do with it. And so, he's really the god of all things. And I loved that. So I got it right here, and then just a little bit more of the stars in the universe. And that's my tattoos. It's pretty cool because, you're doing a Japanese tattoo, and I've been there. So most of my tattoos were done in other countries. Some of them were done here locally, but they're all from places I've been. I've never gotten anything on my body from a culture I haven't physically experienced myself. This is my first time moving away from home. However, I've traveled all over the world, and there's certain cultures that I've really resonated with, and it's helping my belief system because, like you said, whether you believe in God or whatever, for me, I'm very similar to you. I very strongly believe in energies. I believe that somehow my ancestors are watching over me, and I don't know specific words. I pray to energies and my ancestors, the afterlife, the universe, water, sun, the things that make our God, a little bit of everything, because I found that all cultures have such a good thing to say. And so that's why it's really exciting. I get to have the warrior spirit that I really got to experience. And more than just a warrior, it's kind of like peace in the same symbol. So that's why I want it on the side right here, that also kind of shows the beauty of life. And this is my darker side, and then eventually I'll have it all filled in here. And I can't wait. I am very blessed. I feel like a lot of people regret a lot of their tattoos, and I can definitely say there's some that I'm not as fond of as others, but they all have a cool meaning to it. And so I can't wait to really solidify how I feel about my new chapter of life forever.
That's awesome. And you just highlighted the whole time you're talking. I'm like, I'm so lucky to be a tattoo artist, because there's just very few art forms out there that move people to that level. I mean, you just highlighted so much of the most meaningful moments in your life that are represented as tattoos on your body. And every time you look at those tattoos, you get flushed with that emotion in that moment once again. And I just love this art form for that reason. And to be a part of it, I'm incredibly grateful to share. If I was just a painter sitting in a studio by myself, sure, that's cool. And I don't want to look, that's awesome actually. But there's just something different about being an artist in the art of tattooing, that it can bring that type of emotion into someone's life and sticks with them. You can't run away from your tattoos. There they are. So, and I love this. We're going to do this one today. It's going to signify, I don't want to say it's your last day in Southern California.
I'll be home all the time. My grandma, my family's here. So it just signifies change. But never will it be my last day. I'm going to be coming here until the day I die. This is just such a beautiful place.
Awesome. Well, with all that being said, we're going to take a break. We're going to, hang out for a minute. I'm going to get ready. We're going to go tattoo you.
Woo! I'm so excited. Bring on the pain, baby. I guess this is the kind of crazy part about those of you who love tattoos. It's like, the pain is almost comforting a little bit. How it's like, yeah, it hurts, but you're almost like, oh, even though this hurts, it like feels good in a fucked up way. And I'm like, it's just true. Like, until it's like, I'm excited. Bring on the pain, baby, and bring on an exciting new future. This is a new chapter of my life. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I love the energy. All right, let's do it. And I'll see you on the other side.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chatting and I hear him chat with the boys. Now please use caution.
Welcome back.
I survived.
Yeah, yeah, you did. You were just like, I mean, it's kind of an easy tattoo, to be honest, but it is kind of in that little spicy zone. Was it spicy at all? You seemed like completely oblivious. Like, no, it didn't bother you at all.
I feel like it was emotionally spicy.
Oh.
Like, I was tearing up a little bit. The pain, like, felt good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry.
Wish we had some tissues for you. There's some right over there, buddy. On my station, you can give her one of those.
Yeah, the past few months in the transition of, moving to sick jitsu and stuff is so exciting.
On top. Yep, the paper towels.
But, it's also very scary. And, it's like, this represents the next stage of my life, which is so exciting and
It's okay, let it out.
Like emotional, because I've been through so much in my life, and I've finally reached a point of like excitement and stability, and I feel like I'm closing a chapter on both the worst and the best years of my life. And it's not closing a chapter, it's opening a new one. And it's really incredible and so exciting, and just like a lot, like, you know, I love to be positive and high energy, but really, since my loss, I've felt so down. And this reminds me, like, I am a warrior. Like, I am a spirit. I'm going to do something amazing for this world. And every once in a while, it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to do things that are scary. And not only is it okay, it's needed to elevate in your life. So, you know, as you were doing the tattoo, I was tearing up, and I was like, in a weird way, like, it did hurt a little bit, but it, like, felt good. It, I could, like, for a second feel the way I was feeling inside for a little bit, like, oh, like, it hurt, but it was good and, like, needed for growth. You know, like, that fight game hurt, that loss really hurt, but it was needed for growth. And fighting hurts, you know, getting punched in the face hurts, but it's part of the process. And I feel like that's what life is. It's, you know, no matter what aspect you take in life, you're gonna get beat up a little en route to success. I don't care who you are, you've overcome adversity if you're alive still. And yeah, so it was just a beautiful experience. It's not that I was zoned out. I was actually really honed in, and just like it was nice to feel that, you know, like I feel alive. I feel real. I feel like it's going to be okay. And I'm so excited for the future.
That's awesome. And that is what I said. I said chill, but when I was tattooing you, you were composed, but I did sense your energy. I was like, either she's super chill or something's going on. And you were going through a little bit of that release. And it's interesting too, over my years of tattooing, there's been many times, you know, because tattooing is kind of akin to acupuncture.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Like, you can be tattooing somebody and then hit a spot, and it'll release a memory from their childhood. and suddenly they're letting out something they'd forgotten about. I've seen that happen in tattooing, and it can be very healing in that way.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've never cried or got this emotional from a tattoo, but I've also never left home before. So it's like...
You got a lot of big change on your plate. And, it's all happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's not like we're talking about something. In a few months, it's tomorrow.
Yeah, shit just got real.
Yeah. Oh, I just love that you came here and did this with us. Yeah. I know you're probably busy, and this was probably not the best timing for you in certain logistical ways, but...
Or it was the perfect timing.
That's kind of how I feel about
perspective, yeah.
That's awesome. That's super cool. And I can tell those aren't tears of sadness. Those are tears of... just letting out all that pent-up anxiety and stress about all the big moves you're making,
Yeah, and like, am I making the right choice, physically, career-wise, romantically? Like, I feel like as you get into adult, there's a song that was playing when I walked in by the Tame Impala called The Less You Know, The Better. But it's almost like the more you know, the less you know. In a lot of ways. Right. So it's like when you're making a big life choice, you never know if it's the right thing. And sometimes you just need to shoot your shot, baby. So, I was trying so hard not to cry because I was like, people don't need to see that side. But it's like part of a natural process. And although a little embarrassing, I feel... I feel like a warrior, and I feel like no matter how strong you are throughout the war, when you get home, you're going to feel what you went through physically, mentally, and spiritually, and it makes you stronger. So, well, and
the truly strong in this world express themselves authentically, I find that it's the weaker of us that hide all that stuff, to let it out is the purest form of strength.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Well, maybe in closing, before we get to how to find you and things like that, is there any, because I know there's probably a lot of young women that'll see this show that possibly are in jiu-jitsu and have dreams like yours. Any advice you might give a young person that might enter into this world you've been in for a little while?
Yeah, the best advice I can give is who you surround yourself with. I am so blessed to have found my team. It's important to find somebody that really cares about you and somebody that's the best at what they do, or possibly someone you've been with forever. Like, when I was first starting, I was like, I want to be a world champion. And Alima Leigh McFarland was fighting for the world championship. So I'm like, well, that's where I need to be. I need to find the person who's the best at what they do and follow them and learn from them and absorb from them. And that's where I ended up. And one thing that's so special is that everyone I've ever worked with, I have a personal connection with. They really care about me. It's not about how much money I pay them. My loss hurt my coaches just as bad as it did me, and if not more, and that's something that's very special. So if you're trying to make it not only just in martial arts, but in life, find a good mentor for emotional things. Like, I had these mentors that helped elevate me to the next level, but find someone really good at what they do and learn from them. If you're learning from a beginner, you guys are going to be making these mistakes together. And I got to learn from the people I learned from to mistakes, so I don't have to make the same mistakes. So that's something that I would suggest. And that being said, once you find someone and they really believe in you, don't quit like I almost did. I almost cut my life early, and I would be signed my life away to the military right now. So stick with it, and don't let the failures and the mishaps bring you down forever. And whatever passion you're chasing for, once you find what you love, keep shooting your shot. Shoot your shot 1,000 times, baby, because eventually it's gonna land. A good way to explain it is, think of a man that wants to get with a beautiful woman, right? Maybe the first time they say hello, she's like, whatever. I can guarantee in a not creepy way, but some intimacy, that eventually you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's so sweet to me. He keeps saying hello. Like, eventually she'll probably be like, all right, let's go to dinner, or same with a man. If I really wanted a man, it's just a per se, but I think that goes with other things in life. Just keep showing up and keep working hard and you'll get where you want to go.
Great advice. Great advice. My dad used to say to me, everybody has advice, right? He goes, the first thing you need to ask yourself when someone's telling you how to do life, and this is what you should do. First thing you should ask yourself, is this person speaking to me have what I want?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like if I was learning from somebody that went 0-12 in their pro career, I'm sorry, I don't want to learn how to lose.
Yeah, you don't want their advice.
I want to learn how to be a winner.
Yeah, it's like the guy who's going through divorce and he's telling you the relationship advice. You're like,
no thanks.
Don't need to hear it from you.
Yeah.
Good advice, solid advice, true advice. And, again, I think another thing you said was you want to be a winner, surround yourself with winners. And that is the mentor attitude. Like, get yourself around the people that are already doing it. That's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It almost what they're up to. Sometimes in tattooing, I tell my apprentices this. I go, look, it's not so much what I'm going to teach you, the moves, the equipment, all these things. A lot of it just happens through osmosis. When you get around people that are winning, it just oozes into you in some weird, energetic way. Yeah, they teach you some technique, but the bigger part of the learning is just being around a winner. Seeing how they talk, how they walk, when they sleep, what they eat. You just watch how they behave, and you adopt those behaviors,
100%.
That's cool. And it's cool you're doing that. I have a good feeling we have not seen the last of you. And I look forward to watching you grow this career and become a world champion. I'm rooting for you. You have a new fan right here.
Thank you so much.
For sure. And before we go, let us know where people can find you. Is it just the Instagram or...
Yes, you guys can find me Killer Miller MMA on Instagram. My Facebook is Juliana Miller. It's got a personal and a business page. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like, when you have a certain amount of friends, I don't see requests. So if you follow the business page and shoot me a message, I can connect with you there. As well as I have a new Twitter. It's Killer Miller UFC. Okay. So you can find me there. I'm still kind of learning how to use that one. But more importantly, you can catch me in the Octagon in UFC. Stay tuned. The best is yet to come. I am harnessing an evolved version of myself, and, I can't wait to show the world a composed yet chaotic killer. It's going to be a controlled chaos where I'm gonna release a little bit of life on my next opponent, and I promise I'm going to make it all really entertaining for y'all.
Oh, that's amazing. We all look forward to that. Wish you the best on your career. Thank you for being here today. I'm stoked to have tattooed you, and you'll be around in San Diego.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like it, and don't be a stranger.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for all your likes and subscriptions and comments. Please keep them coming. If you like this show, let me know. If you want to see more of the same, let me know. If you want to see other stuff, let me know. And we'll see you on the next one.